Chris, thanks very much. That's the BBC News at 6. You can keep up with all the latest political developments on the BBC website, of course. We'll have more here at 10. But from the 6 team, it's goodbye, and the news continues here on BBC One. Now it's time to join our news colleagues across the nations and regions for the news where you are. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Fiona. Tonight on BBC London, a report into the conduct of the Met Police reveals hundreds of officers have been getting away with breaking the law.
You have a system that isn't working. And in a way, I think, the thing that really concerns me is that the Met understand the system has to change.
We'll have all the details and we'll be speaking to the Mayor live in our studio. Also coming up on the programme tonight, Day 17 of Just Stop Oil protests across London. Today, the group shut the Dartford crossing. Also tonight, tenants and landlords agree that London is in a rental crisis, with high demand and short supply leading to bidding wars.
Well, I'm at Chiswick House and Gardens. Sounds a little bit different at the moment. And I'm also with my new friend, the Corpse Bride and Fireworks. And we'll be telling you about the Halloween fun to be had here and a few other places as well.
Good evening and welcome to the programme. I'm Victoria Hollins. So it's been a day of huge significance of pretty much every household in and around London. The new Chancellor's U-turns on taxes and fuel prices affect everyone. For the next half hour, we'll be focusing on a range of issues that have an impact on the quality of life for people living here. We'll be joined by the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, to discuss many of them. Later, we'll hear about the nightmare many are facing just trying to get a roof over their heads. But first, to the report which lays bare the scale of the problems facing the Metropolitan Police Force. It says hundreds of officers have been getting away with breaking the law and misconduct. This from our political editor, Tim Donovan.
What this lays bare is that there are apparently hundreds of officers out there serving now who are unsuitable for the job, but have failed to be brought to book by a disciplinary process regarded as unfit for purpose. Investigations take too long. Too few cases are going to full investigation. It's a system used disproportionately against black and Asian officers, and it deals particularly badly with allegations of sexual assault or sexual harassment made by women officers against other officers.
We've got, countless examples of women and black and Asian officers that have put their heads above the parapet, and they then find themselves in the misconduct system. And overall, the misconduct system leans in, behind the person that's accused. And actually, the job of a misconduct service is to lean in, to be equal as a minimum, but to believe the woman that's come forward and said, "This is what I'm experiencing on a regular basis."
It's a system and a culture with serious flaws. Not enough time, money and energy is going into investigating complaints. Not enough cases of bad behaviour are being regarded as gross misconduct, warranting dismissal. And there's this quasi-judicial process where officers are protected by a criminal burden of proof. Cases have to be proved against them beyond reasonable doubt, not on the balance of probabilities that their conduct hasn't been suitable. Of course, a number of cases have recently shattered the public's faith in policing. The murder of Sarah Everard by a serving police officer and the protests that followed. The deeply offensive and derogatory messages shared on a WhatsApp group by officers at Charing Cross Police Station. And then there was the two officers who photographed the bodies of Bieber Henry and Nicole Smallman, murdered 2 years ago. Their mother gave her reaction to today's report.
If we're going to have a mass exodus of the rot, I'm really pleased about that. But we're going to need to ensure that who they're replaced with are good people who want to be part of a force to protect us from the bad people.
My thing is, what do we tell black victims of domestic and sexual abuse? Who do we call? Because if you've got the intersectionality of misogyny and racism, who do we call? we finally got the message. Black lives don't appear to matter to some organisations.
To make things really happen here, we'll also need a change in police regulations, changes from government. And the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has said she wants to help the new commissioner. For his part, Sir Mark Rowley says he intends to be proactive in going after those officers that bring the whole force into disrepute.
Tim Donovan there. Well, I'm joined now by the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Thank you for coming in this evening. Mark Rowley said that the Met has been too soft on potential perpetrators. And a specific quote from him, there are hundreds of people we should be moving out of the organisation. What do you think that does for trust now? And of course, the implications of those police officers moving out of the Met?
Well, look, the reason why I asked the Met Police Service to set up this independent inquiry was because of my concern about trust confidence plummeting, but a series of shocking scandals. And this report today, interim report, it is a sobering read. It's horrific and it's shocking. But what we have at last is not just a sunlight being spot on the things Londoners care about, but a Met Police Commissioner who is a reforming commissioner who gets it, and already in his first 3 to 5 weeks has been proactive in addressing these issues.
So two key findings from this report today, that the Met has got to sort out its misconduct system and that it needs to set out really clear standards of what's acceptable. Why is the system still in such disarray? It
beggars belief. In 2022, some officers don't realise what sort of behaviour is allowable, permissible, and what sort of behaviour isn't. And that's why it's really important that there's a zero tolerance and the police walk the walk. So already what Sir Mark has done is set up an anti-corruption and abuse unit. He's supporting the domestic and sexual offences unit, but making it quite clear, listen, if you don't want to sign up to these sorts of priorities, to these sorts of values, leave the police service, because if you don't, you'll be kicked out.
Essentially, you've been at the helm, though, haven't you, for the majority of certainly the recent issues we've heard about. Have you lost control of the Met? Well,
it's no consolation to me to say I told you so. Vindication is not, acceptable to me. What I want is action. So, for example,
how long have you been saying I told you so?
So, for example, the action plan we arranged with the police to address the issues of trust and confidence and transparency, recognised we're making a change. It's me that asked Her Majesty's Inspector to look into serious issues from Daniel Morgan's awful murder, what happened in relation to the police, but also what happened with Stephen Port's victims, homophobic crimes. Similarly, it was me and my deputy mayor who asked the independent police watchdog, the IPC, to look into serious issues. And it was me, often against much opposition, who said to the former commissioner, listen, you don't appear to understand the scale of the challenges, which led to ultimately me losing confidence, and why we've appointed a reforming commissioner who gets it.
There are huge issues, though, as you say. So at the moment, for example, it takes 400 days from allegation to a sanction. On average. Lots of misconduct cases aren't added up. One person could be responsible for several allegations, but nobody seems to know about that. What reforms can you suggest, can you tell the Met to do to make sure both of those two things at least are addressed?
Well, it's about holding them to account and supporting them. So I really welcome, when I said to Sir Mark Rowley, you've got to accept all the recommendations, I'm saying, yes, of course we will accept all the recommendations. I really welcome Sir Mark Rowley saying we're going to invest more in the Professional Standards Director, but make sure that we work with Dame Louise Casey to address these issues, and HMI and ILPC. Sir Mark's already set up a turnaround board to address these issues, and he's got people from outside the Met Police Service helping. Look, it's because there are, well, listen, there are tens of thousands of dedicated, decent, brave officers who deserve our support, but also Sir Mark, as a reforming commissioner, needs our support.
OK, well, we'll just leave that particular issue for a moment. There's lots more to talk about. But for 17 days now, Just Stop Oil protesters have been disrupting London, blocking traffic, spraying paint on buildings and artwork. The group are protesting against the government's decision to issue new oil and gas licences. Today, one protester scaled the Queen Elizabeth II bridge on the M25, leading to its closure and severe delays on the roads. Guy Lynn reports.
Early this morning, 2 Just Stop Oil supporters scaled the Queen Elizabeth II bridge at the Dartford crossing. Traffic chaos and diversions below. Those behind the latest wave of this controversial action, now into its 3rd week, say they're protesting against new government oil and gas licences. For them, that's meant chucking tomato soup at a Van Gogh painting, and on Sunday, gluing themselves to the road in Park Lane, before the spraying of a luxury car showroom. At another protest in Shoreditch, angry members of the public took to removing protesters themselves. Hundreds of protesters have been arrested as these controversial protests rumble on. It's London, which once again is being particularly badly affected.
Well, to the Mayor again, I'm pleased to say. And so day 17, we've seen the effect here. Are you ready to intervene now?
Well, it's a few things. Firstly, I support the importance of tackling climate change. I support protest. It's the cornerstone of our democracy, but it's got to be peaceful, lawful and safe. I do not support what Just Stop Oil are doing across our city. You know, they claim to be against carbon emissions, but having a 1 to 2 hour tailback this morning leads to more carbon emissions, more particulate matter, more nitrogen dioxide, bad for air quality and bad for the environment. So Transport for London have applied to the High Court for injunctions.
So those injunctions are in train, because that is something that the Met say they feel they've had their hands tied because they haven't been able to pursue the injunctions. They want more power. This is happening then.
Well, the cumulative effect of the Just Stop Oil protests, many of them unlawful, causing criminal damage and disrupting our city. Many people who want to walk and cycle, use buses, can't do so because of these protests. And so the High Court will make their decision. If they grant the injunctions, it will mean anybody who breaches the injunctions could be breaking the law and the police will be able to take action.
What about those Londoners we've seen who've acted on their own? The taxi drivers who've been dragging people out from in front of vehicles, that sort of thing. Do you condone that sort of behaviour?
Well, this is the point I'm trying to get across to Just Stop Oil. You are potentially driving away allies. Many of our black cabs have bought electric taxis. More than a third of our taxis are electric. We have more electric buses than any city in the Western world. What they should be doing is encouraging people to join their campaign and lobbying the government. Their tactics and strategy is driving people away from the campaign. And I can tell you this, the government aren't listening in a way that the campaigners want them to do so.
OK, thanks very much on that for now. Well, we've also been hearing today that London is in a rental crisis. That's according to tenants and some landlords. Competition for homes is pushing up prices, and some renters say they're facing bidding wars just to secure a home. This week, we'll be exploring what's happening in London. Well, Tara Welsh has been speaking to one renter who's been struggling to find accommodation.
Come with us trying to find an apartment in London in 10 days. This is our last day of viewings before we move out.
We discovered that the market is so competitive. People were leasing apartments without seeing it. And yeah, there were bidding wars.
$17.50, the agent told us we had to offer more if we wanted because there were multiple offers.
The agent tells you, so this person is offering £200 more and this person offering £300 more. So apartments would go like for £1,000 more.
Come with us trying to find an apartment in London, not in 10 days anymore. First one we had was in Lewisham, $16.50, had a beautiful balcony, 1 bed, 1 bath, reception room. We made an offer, and this one, unfortunately, we did not get it.
I originally posted these videos because it was very amusing to me what's happening in the rental market here in London, and a lot of people were like shocked about this. Some people shared their story. We viewed an apartment in Camden. It had like around 20 people viewing it. Sometimes we viewed flats that's like unlivable. It's in really bad condition. They wouldn't want to like do anything to the apartment and leave it as it is, and they tell you at the end someone's gonna take it, and actually people take it.
Holloway Road, $16.50.
We made offers to apartments that we don't like and we don't want because like it was horrendous and we couldn't find anywhere to stay. We're like gonna be homeless at the end of the day, so like we had to like make a plan B, and we got even rejected from the apartments we didn't like. We paid a holding deposit, and then after sending all the paperwork and stuff, the agent called us and tells us the landlord accepted another offer. He's gonna pay like the whole year up front.
$30,000?
It was very crazy and extremely depressing, like overwhelming. It took a toll on us and our mental health and everything. And yeah, it wasn't okay to like go through all of this just to find an apartment to rent.
Well, let's pick on up on some of those issues now. It does sound like a nightmare for a lot of people at the moment. We've actually got a specific question from Rowan, who we heard in that report.
My question is there any immediate action planned to solve the rental crisis?
Well, listen, it's heartbreaking watching that story. I hear similar stories every day. We have a housing crisis in our city, and the short response has got to be to increase the supply of homes that have been built in London that are genuinely affordable. And in the meantime, we've got to freeze rents. If we froze rents in London over the next 2 years, families would save about £3,000 over the course of the next 2 years. And I'm asking the government to give us the powers to have rent controls in London to control the sort of rents you saw in that programme. 2.5 million Londoners renting privately, and in addition to the other challenges with the cost of living crisis, their rents are going to go up by £3,000 over the next 2 years.
OK, well, you mentioned rent controls there. Let's just hear what a few people have got to say on that idea.
Sure.
Something like that would be helpful, but it doesn't take away, I think, from the fact still that there's just so many people looking.
It's a terrible idea. I think a lot of landlords will end up leaving the market because the cost that we're going to incur is not going to make running a property business worth it.
So a mixture of views there, but a fundamental concern really that rent controls just don't work.
Well, the first thing is we've got to set up a commission in London. We've set up a blueprint to give to the government where we have a commission, including landlords, tenants and other experts, to have a system that works for London. If it's good enough for Vienna and Paris and cities in New York and Berlin, why isn't it good enough for London? And the reality is, for decades now, we've not been building the homes in London that we need. We need, roughly speaking, 50,000 new homes a year in London. In the 8 years before I became mayor, the average was 25,000. So think about it, over 8 years, that's a shortage of 200,000. We've managed to increase that to between 35 and 40,000, but there's still a gap between supply and demand. So until we have enough affordable homes in London, we've got to control the rent levels. The market isn't working for private renters, which is why you're having these bidding wars, and you've got more and more families priced out of London. That's just not right.
But at a time when landlords are looking at potentially very much increased mortgage costs, that's going to likely force a lot out. The idea of rent controls will surely send a whole bunch of others out, and you just exacerbate the problem hugely.
Well, at the moment, families are facing a cost of living crisis, right? So you've got families who simply can't afford to stay in their home. They've got landlords increasing their rents at the end of a tenancy, but also landlords able to evict somebody for no good reason. So what we're saying to the government is two things. One is to give us support to build more affordable homes. Two, allow us to have a commission to have a form of rent control in London that works. But three, in the short term now, freeze rents for the next 2 years. A simple thing you could do that would help 2.5 million Londoners.
In other cities you've mentioned, Berlin and San Francisco is another place that they've tried this. It really benefited long-term renters, older people, really disadvantaged the young, people who are just getting on the rental market. Why should it be any different in London, do you think? Because
that's one part of the equation, which is dealing with the private rental market now. Security of tenure, so you've got security, but also affordable rents. The other part of the equation is increase the supply of genuine affordable homes. You know, last year we began building more council homes than any year since 1973. We completed more homes than any year for the last few decades. In fact, more homes since the 1930s. So we can make a change, but with support from the government. And this measure, rent freezes, rent controls, new council homes, new affordable homes, is the way to solve this problem.
Thank you very much indeed for your time this evening. We could have talked about any one of those subjects for much longer, I'm sure, but thank you for now.
It's a pleasure.
Well, we've heard that from the Mayor. What about the government? We did try to get someone to come in, but we got a statement instead. And it said, making sure that renters get a fair deal remains a priority. And the Prime Minister has committed to the ban on no-fault evictions. This will protect tenants and empower them to challenge poor practice, poor housing standards and unjustified rent increases. It also told us it's focused on building more homes. Well, we've more on this throughout the week, and we'll be hearing from people about what some of the solutions could be. Let's take a look at some of the day's other news now. And one man has died and another remains in hospital following a street fight in Leytonstone yesterday evening. Policing has been stepped up in and around Church Lane following the incident. Scotland Yard said no arrests have been made and an urgent investigation is underway. More Londoners will have to flood-proof their homes to stop sewage flooding in. That's according to a new report into the heavy rainfall that hit London in July. 1,500 homes were flooded following the downpours. The report says the capital needs sewer upgrades and more greenery to prevent surface water runoff. Instagram owner Meta has said it can't take action against racist abuse sent to Brentford striker Ivan Toney because it's not been reported in the app. The striker posted the abuse he'd received following his 2 goals against Brighton last Friday. Meta has removed 2 other accounts owned by the person who messaged the abuse to Toney. Next, a little toy giraffe called Jeffrey has been zigzagging across the British skies in fighter jets and warplanes. Why? Well, it's all for a good cause, as Simon Spark explains.
Why is a toy giraffe being filmed and photographed within some of the most important aircraft in some of the most important public displays and military exercises? Just look at the shadows and you'll see this is filmed during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee flypast over Buckingham Palace. And here we are on the HMS Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier. This was Exercise Cobra Warrior at RAF Waddington, where the German Air Force also wanted to get involved, and the United States Air Force have taken him to the edge of space. Well, his name is Jeffrey the giraffe, and he was the constant companion of Louise Conway, who died of leukemia aged just 9 years old.
She was so adorable. The nurses got a real good bond with her whilst at Great Ormond Street because of her character. She was witty. She had laughs. She played pranks on nurses. And this little Jeffrey become a real soulmate. And I put this across onto the social media, onto the Facebook. And without me knowing, with around 9 months later, friends on this group come to me and said, Ian, we've done this for you. And it was a Facebook group, and it was kept closed, but it had images of giraffes flying around in aircraft in Canada, basically all over the world.
For years now, Jeffrey's adventures have been raising money for Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital, where Louise was treated.
And it's allowed family, friends to talk about Louise.
What do you think Louise would have thought of all this?
With her wit, I think at first she'd say, you're crazy. She'd say to me, yeah, you're mad, Dad, what you do running around with Jeffrey, you know, but she would absolutely love it.
Oh, lovely. Now, we've heard the word spooked a lot recently, mostly to have been in relation to the financial markets, it seems. But at Chiswick House, they're taking it back to a meaning more fitting to this time of year, because the first Halloween trail is being held there, complete with a headless horseman or 2. Well, let's find out more from Jim Weeble, who's there for us this evening. Jim.
Thank you, Victoria. Yes, indeed. Halloween is just around the corner, isn't it? The 31st of October. And here at Chiswick House, they've got just what you want if you like a bit of a spooky thing. Look, we've got a gravestone here. John Wilson, not quite sure what happened to him. Probably a sad story. This is my particular favourite, though. We've got a smoking coffin. Now, this is apparently a real coffin. No previous owners, I've been told. At least, I think so. I'm not sure. But I have been told I do need this staff, because over here we have the headless horseman and his rather unfortunate looking bride, the corpse bride. We won't get into exactly what dispute happened there, but I'm sure it's gory. Follow me anyway, because further down, all sorts of things flickering in the distance. That's a putrid pumpkin patch. And of course, Halloween wouldn't be Halloween, would it, without our dear friend, the Grim Reaper. Here he is. How are you, Grim? Very well. He can't speak very much, quite a quiet fellow, but apparently very bad reputation. Also, we have Matthew Finley, who is one of the team who has put all of this together. Matthew, how does this all work? I mean, do you literally sit around a table with a pad and paper and think of the most ghoulish ideas you can?
Absolutely, and the best one wins. We start about 12 months in advance, and today we are happy to present it, but we have lots of things across our 1.2 kilometre route for everyone to see and enjoy in our spooky Halloween trail.
Indeed. I'm sorry about our friend here. He's got no idea about personal space, has he? The other thing I wanted to ask you was, I mean, this is quite a new concept, isn't it? I mean, this is quite big in America, but here we don't really have so many of these, do we? These trails, Halloween trails.
No, certainly. We've been really excited to bring this Halloween concept in a really authentic fashion over to the UK market, and certainly have a few spins or twists on it from the British side of things.
Marvellous. OK, thank you very much, Matthew. Grim, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a bit more space, if that's OK. Now, there are loads of events happening over the next few weeks, Halloween events. I'll give you a little taste of some now. So for instance, over at Brompton Cemetery, they have a spooktacular nature day that you can go along to. Over at Hyde Park, they've got a hair-raising Halloween experience. Amongst other things, I think you can find out about the bats in the park. And the other one is at the Charterhouse Museum, which is in the Barbican, another trail. But that is just 3 of many that are happening over the next couple of weeks. Lots of paid-for events, lots of free events. But for now, I think it's probably about time that we said goodbye from here. Goodbye from the Headless Horseman, the Corpse Bride, the Grim Reaper, Matthew, and me, and my trusty staff.
Gem, it suits you a bit too much. Thanks very much indeed. OK, let's get a check on the weather with Kate Kinsella.
Thanks very much, Victoria. Good evening. Well, it's been quite a warm day despite the rather gloomy start first thing this morning. We had a cold front moving through, but that cleared and we've got this blue sky, a bit of cloud, a bit of sunshine, beautiful reflection here over at the Old Bailey. Also Richmond, now you can see the blue sky, but you can just about make out a little bit of hazy cloud or high cloud, turning that sunshine a bit hazy through this morning. It was very much like a summer's day though. Temperatures, Kew Gardens got up to 19.9. This was at Gordon Square earlier. Only thing giving the autumn away there is the leaves. Now that's your cold front. It's moving away south and eastwards. We've still got this orangey and yellow colour though. That's the air and that's why it's been quite warm. Now this cold front, you can see the remnants of which that high cloud clearing away into this evening and overnight, and under clear skies it is going to get quite chilly, much chillier than last night. The wind a bit lighter too than it was today, and that's the perfect recipe for a bit of mist and fog. Minimum temperature 4 Celsius out towards the suburbs and beyond, 8 in central London. Now that mist and fog could be quite stubborn first thing on Tuesday morning. Takes quite a while to clear this time of year, but once it does, we should get a decent amount of sunshine through the day. Perhaps again similar to this afternoon, a bit more cloud coming out from the south, turning that sunshine hazy, but again it's going to be warm with a maximum of 18 Celsius. You can see that easterly breeze just starting to develop. Now as we head further through the week, overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, low pressure down to the southwest in the Atlantic, the high pressure just starts to lose its grip, and that's going to allow these fronts to move in, so more unsettled conditions arriving. As we head through Wednesday itself, showers coming up from the south. There is going to be quite a lot of clouds around. The showers might get a rumble of thunder mixed in there as well, but temperatures still very mild on Wednesday. We're looking at a maximum of around 18 or 19 Celsius. Now it is going to stay quite unsettled as we head further through this week, and temperatures remain similar. Victoria.
Sounds good. Kate, thank you. Tonight's main headline now. And the new Chancellor has torn up almost all of the Prime Minister's plan for the economy. Jeremy Hunt said there will now be no cut in the basic rate of income tax and warned of spending cuts to come. And that's about it from me. If you want to find out more about how you might be affected by the challenges in the rental market, do head to our website where we've got all sorts of facts and figures. I'm back at 10:30, but for now, from all of us here on the team, whatever you're doing, do have a lovely evening. Bye for now.